This just in, next week, the House Judiciary Committee is set to deliberate on a resolution to cite Hunter Biden for contempt of Congress. This action comes in response to his noncompliance with a subpoena, as he did not attend a scheduled deposition before investigators from 3 committees probing his business affairs.
As you may remember, rather than appearing last month as required, the president's son expressed his readiness to engage with the panels exclusively in a public setting while speaking on the Senate lawn. Lawmakers said last month they would hold Biden in contempt of Congress. Biden's legal team did not immediately respond to request for comment on Friday. So it sounds like, from this reporting, that Biden might be hiding something. Hunter Biden might be hiding something. I can understand why you would want the hearing to happen in a public setting, just so that everything you say gets out and they can't decide to keep in certain things and release others. But, that's the nature of a congressional, subpoena. And to hold him in contempt of Congress is a reasonable thing to do if he doesn't, cooperate with the subpoena. This was the same thing that Donald Trump did with the January 6th committee, if we remember back to when Trump said he wasn't going to testify unless he could do so in a public setting. So, if you're someone who was outraged by Donald Trump's decision there, but you think Hunter Biden's being totally reasonable here, it's a bit of hypocrisy. I think as same with Donald Trump refusing to testify in the January 6th scenario with Congress, Hunter Biden taking the same course of action. Okay, they should both get the same treatment.
Yeah, I just don't think Hunter Biden's explanation for why he wants to testify publicly holds water, because Jim Jordan has already said that they would be willing to both have this closed-door deposition as well as a public hearing. And considering the nature of the alleged crimes here, it makes sense to do some things behind closed doors. There's a lot of financial documents and information involved that would require significant retractions if they were talked about in a public setting. So being able to do this in a closed-door deposition is to make sure that all of the information in relation to the alleged crimes can actually be talked about openly and honestly. Not to mention the fact that these public hearings are often done just for show. A lot of these Congress people have their staff write these gotcha questions. Everybody only gets 5 minutes to even ask about it. A lot of the members who are involved, frankly, don't really have any business being involved in some of these public hearings anyway. They'd be better off ceding their time to an expert or to another member of Congress. And so typically, I think the closed-door depositions do just render more information. So it makes sense to me for them to do that first, then have the public hearing, and Hunter Biden can feel like he's done whatever he needs to do to clear his reputation or what have you. It's also worth pointing out that there have previously been 2 Trump affiliates who were charged with contempt of Congress when they refused to testify to the January 6th committee. Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon both were charged with contempt and were facing jail time for that because they did not want to comply with the subpoena. They said that the January 6th committee was politically motivated and therefore they shouldn't be required or compelled to come testify. And Congress said, no, you're wrong. We're going to hold you accountable. So I agree, Jessica, there's no reason why Hunter Biden shouldn't face the music.
Yeah, if he's referred to the Department of Justice and the committee votes to hold him in contempt of Congress and there's potential charges, that's fine. I think what Hunter Biden is doing is probably, an effort to never have to face the music. I think what's happening here is he's saying that there's no fairness or decency in what Republicans are doing. They're spreading all of these lies about me. But we know that he did sue the Overstock.com CEO over defamation, over false claims. He's really upset that the Republicans in this committee have made a lot of claims without presenting the evidence to back those claims about Hunter Biden's business dealings, about his personal life. I don't know. I think a deposition would be a time to clear the air on many of those things. And if they're not true, and they're being spread very publicly, almost to the point where a lot of the things that have been alleged without evidence are considered fact to many people, that sounds like grounds for a defamation lawsuit again. Why is he not pursuing that if the claims are not true is a major question that I have.
Yeah, I also think we have to look at Eric Swalwell's involvement in helping Hunter Biden defy that congressional subpoena. He was the one who booked the space for him on Capitol grounds for him to hold the presser. Hunter Biden, that is, lied to Congress, said he was coming to do the deposition. And instead, he rolls up in his car, he gets out, and he holds this press conference where he's completely defiant about testifying, says he's not going to do it. And then he rolls off, and we find out that Eric Swalwell was the one who helped facilitate that. I asked Greg Steube, a Republican congressman on Fox Business the other day, if they were going to look into Eric Swalwell, and he told me that the chairman, James Comer, was interested in it and discussing it, but basically they didn't have any tangible attempts to try to hold him accountable. But I think if you sort of aid and abet someone to commit a crime, or in this case, the crime being contempt of Congress, refusing to comply with the subpoena, then maybe you should have to face some consequences as well.
Yeah, I'm curious if what's going to happen is if they're going to vote to hold him in contempt, or if they're going to say, like, fine, let's have a public hearing. I'm not sure in this scenario why they wouldn't want to have Hunter Biden be questioned in a public hearing. They could have some kind of compromise here and say, all right, we're going to keep a lot of the documents that need to remain classified, but we are going to ask you the same questions that we're talking about in the media, that we're doing late night news interviews on cable TV about. Those subjects, I'm sure, are fine to discuss as they discuss them publicly themselves. So these Republicans, I think, if they want, could just have a public testimony from Hunter Biden in the committee. And then maybe Hunter Biden would agree to be privately deposed on the things that are national security concerns. That seems a reasonable way forward. And the back and forth between, Hunter Biden and the chairs of this committee has been excruciating to watch, because you have Hunter Biden on the one hand not really cooperating, seemingly hiding things, and then you have the Republicans alleging things that they are not presenting evidence for. I think this would be a fine way forward, where now we have answers under oath to a lot of the questions all of them are asking, and they get the deposition that they've wanted behind closed doors.
Yeah, and Jim Jordan, I know, has said that he is open to both having the private deposition as well as the public hearing, and would be interested in negotiating that. But it looks like Hunter Biden's lawyers just haven't been willing to even discuss the idea of a private deposition. They only want the public hearing, which is obviously a huge problem for the House Judiciary Committee on the Republican side. There's also this story coming out of the New York Post that Hunter Biden's so-called sugar brother, the Hollywood attorney Kevin Morris, is backing a soft-focused documentary on Hunter Biden, apparently a film crew has been trailing Hunter for years and was recently spotted recording him as he publicly defied that subpoena. So I am hopeful that this documentary would come out. What a fascinating piece of television that would be, Jessica.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to make documentaries about things like this, super fascinating. I really want some kind of conclusiveness to come out of, this committee's review of Hunter Biden's bank statements. I really think that if we had something concrete to say that Joe Biden was, in fact, colluding with Hunter Biden around Ukraine and Hunter Biden's involvement with Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company, if we had something concrete about this payment that allegedly went to, the big man, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, and was split. But of course, in reviewing Hunter Biden's bank statements, we're likely not to find anything, because what they said when this investigation started was that it was intentionally made impossible to find. So
Right.
Any bank statements are probably not going to be helpful. What they really need to find is some kind of alternative to traditional banking that either Hunter Biden or Joe Biden or Burisma was using, in which funds could be transferred. So it was made intentionally impossible. It seems the only real way forward is to question Hunter Biden directly, and it doesn't seem that we're going to get that.
Yeah, I think they should also focus on some of the alleged involvement that Joe Biden had with Hunter Biden's business, where he was using these pseudonyms to email with Hunter about calls he was going to have with members of the government of Ukraine. And the public statement he made, of course, of firing the prosecutor, Victor Shokin. I think that angle is relevant, too, because even if Joe Biden, if they can't prove that Joe Biden personally profited financially from this, perhaps they can show that he was making policy decisions or policy changes or using his position to help Hunter Biden in business. It's not exactly the same thing, but I think it's still a level of corruption that the American people have quite a distaste for. We're going to be back with more Rising after this.